So in this video, I'm going to be discussing who I think would win between a Hal Jordan Green Lantern and Sentry. So we're going to start with the scaling for Hal Jordan. His main power set is going to be primarily, his Green Lantern ring, which allows him to create powerful constructs of anything he can imagine. His Lantern ring is always going to be powered off of his willpower, and among the Green Lanterns and just characters in general, Hal Jordan has easily the most willpower. It's been stated numerous times that he is the definitive, the strongest Green Lantern. There's really no doubt in that. So most of his scaling can also be applied off of other Green Lantern feats, although he has had enough of his own feats that we've seen that we can really kind of just scale purely off of the feats that he's done. But theoretically, he should be able to scale to anything Kyle Rayner or any of the other Green Lanterns have done with the Green Lantern power ring. So for the main line of scaling that we can get for Hal Jordan in terms of his AP, and again, this is going to be mostly through his constructs, but he was able to fight, injure, and eventually beat Parallax host Sinestro, who has the power of Parallax and is stated to be better at utilizing the power of Parallax than Hal Jordan was. For those who don't know, Hal Jordan was at one point the Parallax host himself. So I think logical scaling should be able to get current Hal Jordan, who's able to beat the likes of a Parallax host Sinestro to sorry, when I say current, I mean a more composite. So composite Hal Jordan should be able to scale to his Parallax infused self due to his ability to, through his own willpower and no further amps, beat Parallax host Sinestro, which is itself a pretty impressive feat because Parallax is this character that can be scaled very easily to complex multiversal plus. And you could maybe even consider scaling him higher. When Hal Jordan was in possession of Parallax's powers, and when he was calling himself Parallax, he was a big enough cosmic level threat that the Spectre compared him directly to the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, and said decided that he had to step in because he was so worried about the possible disastrous consequences. So through that line of scaling, we can easily get Hal Jordan to a complex multiversal at his full potential with his power ring. In terms of other things he's able to do, his constructs that he makes are pretty varied. It is anything he can imagine, and it isn't wholly limited to a hard light construct without function. He's been able to create entire suns that were able to provide warmth and power for a whole solar system. And aside from that, he can also it has a great amount of durability applications. He can create one, he already has pretty high durability. Just having the ring, he has an implied force field around himself at all times. But he's even able to extend this range. And his most impressive feat was he was able to create a dome around the entire Earth, which was able to hold back an invasion of literally hundreds of thousands of Kryptonians. I think about 250,000, if Aquaman is to be believed, right? So that is going to be an incredibly impressive feat of itself. Obviously not every Kryptonian can necessarily scale directly to Superman's best feats, but in terms of strength, they're definitely not slouches. And if we even just look at, the Kryptonians that we've seen in the main series, Superman, Supergirl, Zod, if they even scale to a tenth of any of their powers, this is such an incredible feat for Hal Jordan to be able to do. Continuing, there are also a good amount of speed feats for Hal Jordan in terms of straight travel speed. He's able to really zip around the whole universe from one sec to another in no time at all. And aside from that, in terms of his actual combat speed, he's able to fight against characters that have very, high speed stats themselves. He's able to fight against Cyborg, Superman, pretty handily. Does it not super regularly, but he does do it. He's able to tag characters like the Flash with his construct rings and they give him a run for his money. Although obviously he's not going to be in terms of combat speed quite as fast as the Flash, but even against the character with the Flash's speed, he's still able to get in hits. terms of durability, even without like his specific force fields, he's able to tank attacks from the likes of Superman and Wonder Woman. And we could always make an argument that they're holding back, but he's even able to tank attacks against Darkseid, who Darkseid's not really the kind of guy to pull punches. So in terms of his durability, even without the direct force fields, he is like a really durable character and able to slug it out with some of the high tiers. And so in terms of exactly where we could scale him in terms of AP, like I mentioned before, it would be that complex multiversal. And, I think that it can be a little difficult to really get a gauge for like scaling, especially like universe versus universe, like Marvel versus DC, as to which one's bigger. But the Crisis on Infinite Earths event was, literally going to be causing problems for like an infinite number of Earths. So it should at least scale Hal Jordan to the like DC cosmology, at least at the time of the Crisis event. Now, so we're gonna move on to Sentry, and I do want to make a quick note about Sentry because I think that there is a lot of variability when it comes to discussions of the Sentry. Because for like kind of like Gladiator, his powers are very variable depending on his mental state. While Gladiator is like, his amount of confidence determines how strong he is, Sentry is more so how mentally stable he is. And he is a schizophrenic. So, it goes both ways a lot. And for that reason, even though Sentry doesn't have a crazy amount of like runtime as a character, he's like relatively new. And by new, I mean like 20 years old. He has like a really, really large variety in terms of his feats. Sometimes he's fighting characters like Human Torch. Sometimes he's fighting characters like Molecule Man. And it's really hard to say. So for this, I will be assuming like a more generous version of the Sentry. I think it's very colloquially known as stable Sentry, where he's like, a mentally stable character. And so a stable Sentry should be able to scale to anything that Void Sentry is able to do and above. For those who aren't familiar, Void Sentry is like it's like Sentry's alter ego. He believes that he has an entity in him called the Void, which manifests and has more power than him. So he's always constantly trying to keep it back. But I think it's pretty much confirmed that it's just because Sentry is like a schizophrenic man, and he kind of imagines himself being the Void, and that's what creates the Void. And the Void isn't like wholly its own entity. Although I guess it really depends on how you define what an entity is, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. So the point I mean to make is Sentry should scale to anything he's able to do in Void form or in like Void fused form. Not necessarily to Death Seed Sentry, because that's a little different, but he should be scaling to Void Sentry's feats. In terms of feats, Sentry is very he is often considered to be the strongest superhero in the Marvel universe. He's able to fight and slug it out with characters like the Hulk. He's able to fight, pretty handedly against characters like Thor. Both in terms of speed and strength, he's able to, very well keep pace with the characters like this. He was even able to, among his more impressive feats, fight against World War Hulk. When World War Hulk came to Earth. And eventually, Sentry did lose that fight, but he was, engaging with World War Hulk in like a test of strength. Like kind of almost like a wrestling sumo type match. And he was able to, hold his own against World War Hulk, which is, among the stronger versions of the Hulk we've seen, although Hulk has been like a bit upgraded since that event. And then most impressively, I think, we have Sentry able to fight against Molecule Man and kind of overpower him in his own domain of like molecule manipulation. Molecule Man like tried using his powers, and Sentry really just like overpowered and said like, put it back or I'll kill you. And Molecule Man was like, generally tweaking because he thought he was gonna die. And now Molecule Man is a character that can scale to like, the Beyonders, post retcon Beyonder, of course. And he does in the 2015 Secret Wars event. Although it is worth noting that Molecule Man does have kind of Sentry syndrome, where his powers and strength do vary greatly based on his mental stability and like how in tune he is with his powers and how well he's working. He's like utilizing them. In terms of speed, Sentry is going to be able to. He's shown being able to handle fights against massively faster than light characters. Um, he's also like shown being able to fly around space pretty quickly. Although like best feat we have for him is kind of less universal and more so like he was able to fly from Earth to Jupiter in like pretty much no time. So faster than light, but hard to really get a full gauge for exactly how fast his travel speed is. But he does fight pretty regularly against characters that do scale to high levels of speed, like Thor especially. Thor being able to tag characters like Quicksilver in a fight as well. So, we can easily get him to MFTL as well. So as for who I think would win, and so it's worth noting both of these characters do have a wide variety of like abilities that they have access to. Hal Jordan has more than just like construct manipulation, pure strength and speed. He does have like other feats, but they're kind of few and far between and not really like super relevant to a versus battle. Sentry, on the other hand, I think it's worth just listing out. He's got like energy projection, obviously the super speed, super strength, and also like a form of molecule manipulation, as well as an incredible, like when I say incredible, I mean like strong, maybe the best, if not like top 3 or 4 in the Marvel universe. Healing factor. His healing factor was so strong even that when Morgan Le Fay like went back in time to erase him from existence, he was able to regenerate from that. So he's able to like, I guess, regenerate from like conceptual attacks as well, which is very, very nuts. And really what it comes down to for Sentry is he only dies if he wants to, right? The only time we've really seen Sentry die is times where he like kind of asked to be killed. Like when he was fighting against Thor, he said like, he wanted to get his head bashed in and like willingly died. Otherwise, very easy to assume that he could have just regenerated from it. So with all of that said, and again, when I talk about these battles, I'm not assuming it's a fight to the death. I'm assuming it's a fight of who can knock who out, who can restrain who, or get a battlefield removal in as well. It's not just straight to the death. So with those criteria and everything in mind, I will give it to Hal Jordan. And so I think that this fight highlights a very big problem when it comes to power scaling in comic books especially. And that's Green Lantern Hal Jordan has had just a much, much broader range of, time that he's been like a relevant character in DC. So he has more in feats that he can draw from. Whereas Sentry, started in 2000 and kind of haven't really seen him much since 2018. He has had a very limited, breadth of feats. We've seen him fight against some of the top tiers, but since then we've seen those characters get massively stronger, and we don't really have enough feats of him fighting against those top tiers to say that he could do it consistently. And again, a part of that is he's just such a variable character in terms of how he's written and how strong he is, due in large part due to his his mental instability. So but even if we are to scale him, because I did say stable Sentry, to his higher end feats, we still encounter like a bit of a problem. So, and again, like just to be clear, Hal Jordan is among the strongest DC characters. His feats throughout the years have been ridiculous, right? And to scale him to Crisis on Infinite Earths, to be able to scale him to like 250,000 Kryptonians in terms of like pure energy output is just insane. Whereas again, Sentry's feats are pretty impressive. His speed, his strength, he's able to fight against a lot of top tiers. But these are characters who we've, a lot of scaling for them has come like up a little more recently, right? Like Hulk and Thor especially have had feats within the past like 5-6 years that have really been able to allow us to like upscale them more comfortably. And Sentry was not, or has not really fought with them since those like upgrades. And even then, they were of course impressively strong beforehand, but not strong enough in terms of like power display where I'm saying they're going to be like Crisis on Infinite Earths level threats in the DC universe. So the main point of contention that I think I could see arising from this video is going to be Sentry's interaction with Molecule Man, right? I'm saying stable Sentry, so obviously stable Sentry should be scaling to this version of Molecule Man that he was able to fight. This Molecule Man being able to, damage and restrain and capture the Beyonders, right? But the main problem with Molecule Man is that, again, he is a lot like Sentry, where his powers can vary greatly based on how good he is at manipulating them. At his peak, he's like top 3, top 4 in the Marvel universe, like behind only the One Above All, Beyonders, and like the Living Tribunal. he just has those absurd levels of power. But from this one interaction, it just feels like more of an outlier than something we can say consistently. Because if Sentry was truly able to fight this high tier version of Molecule Man as no diff as he did, then he shouldn't be struggling against characters like the versions of Thor and Hulk that he was fighting. Even like World Breaker Hulk should be getting fodderized by someone like Molecule Man, especially if Sentry literally has access to the molecule manipulation that he would be able to use. But in terms of like his raw output strength, he just shouldn't be able to scale to someone like Hal Jordan. And for somebody who says like molecule manipulation counts as hacks, and thus they should be able to win. Like Firestorm is a very like he's not power wise equivalent to Molecule Man in terms of strength, but he also controls molecules on like a subatomic level. And Hal Jordan as Sinestro host was able to fight against pretty much all of Earth's DC heroes at the same time, including Firestorm. So if it was just a simple matter of transforming his legs into like biscuits or something, whatever you want to say for the molecule manipulation, it would have happened. So it's reasonable to assume that Hal Jordan has some level of like resistance to that kind of manipulation. So therefore, I think comfortably I'm gonna have to give the win to Hal Jordan. But again, it really depends on how you want to interpret Sentry's feats. I think that it could go either way. If you want to be generous to Sentry, you can say like he should upscale to Molecule Man, and then it's a no diff fight for him. But I think more consistently, he's just not quite at the level where I would be comfortable putting him above Hal Jordan in terms of really any of his feats. But that's kind of my general thought on it. And again, I think with these battles, you can really cherry pick anything you want to make it go one way or the other. But I am trying my best to give like a holistic idea of who I think would win. So if you like this video or this type of content, please interact with this video, subscribe. I'm trying to look to grow this channel. And every like or comment is like a good indication of what kind of content works and what people are interested in seeing, and what doesn't work and what people aren't very not really enjoying. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.